Welcome back. If you guys been listening from the start of the podcast, we're back with some familiar faces here. We got my brother Sammy and my sister Kailey.
Hello, Oliver.
And I was imagining that there might be some people that had started listening to the podcast. Maybe they listened to the first 5 episodes where it was us three for all of it. And then they get a sense of disappointment when they realize that you guys weren't part of it.
They missed us.
Yeah, no, people
have you heard any feedback like that?
Not direct, but I've seen some signs that people were
this
not
is the
too
comeback
happy.
Episode. We'll see if the numbers jump back up.
I actually
Spike.
thought the opposite was going to happen. I assumed that people were like, these two again.
Yeah, some people maybe. I mean, it all depends on the audience, different type of people. But if you were worrying, where'd Kailey and Sammy go? Don't worry, they'll be back whenever they want to come back.
Drop us a fire emoji if you missed us.
Yeah. yeah, drop a fire emoji.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Hit that
subscribe
bell notification or something like that.
And on that, Kailey, I was thinking, you'll like this one, but I was thinking if we were to forget about doing the podcast with you two, it'd be like that saying, don't forget who brought you to the dance. You like that
one? You're learning more sayings.
Yeah. Kailey's always bullying me for not knowing a lot of sayings.
That's a good one.
There you go. There's one.
That's a good one. Don't forget who brought you to the dance.
It's not bullying, but I have to say anyone would be in utter shock over the lack of knowledge Ollie has on sayings.
I heard him say a couple good ones.
Yeah, you just weren't there. Down to the wire.
Yeah.
I used that one a couple times.
Yeah, that one's good.
But anyway,
we looked that one up. Anybody wondering? It's about horse racing. Down to the wire.
Yeah, some of the meaning behind these sayings are strange. You wouldn't think.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I wanted to talk about in this episode is some ideas from the book The War of Art. It's about overcoming your battles towards internal battles towards usually like creative pursuits, but anything really. And the book talks a lot about resistance, and that it's essentially a war between you. There's like a force pulling you towards achieving some of your goals and some of your creative pursuits. And there's also the resistance towards doing those things. And the resistance will come in forms of procrastination, self-doubt, being a victim, like victimizing yourself, all sorts of internal things that prevent you from taking action towards your goals. And I think this is an important thing to try to figure out, and try to figure out a good way to overcome the resistance, because you'll see this in so many different areas of your life, whether it's like doing like work, like actual like your job work, working out, any like hobby that you pick up, whatever it is, there's going to be a little bit of resistance. You might start rationalizing as to why you shouldn't do the thing, and trying to overcome that is key. And the reason why I wanted to look at this book now is because even for this podcast, I'm having some resistance all the time towards creating it. And for you guys, have you seen resistance in your life, maybe in a particular area? And maybe you're not used to calling it resistance, but like, do you know what I mean by resistance? I'd like to get that cleared up at the beginning of the podcast, what I mean by resistance, because I might say that word over and over again.
Right.
Does it make sense?
As the book says it, like every second sentence.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I read the book too, so it makes sense to me for sure. And I like kind of the kind of idea of the book too, where he's like, the stronger like the resistance, like it's almost the more you should do that thing.
Yeah, it's a sign.
Yeah, it's like the more you're kind of afraid of something, it means that you kind of potentially care about this thing a lot more. And that's kind of why you're afraid. So for the podcast, for example, it's like, maybe if you are feeling some resistance, like that's kind of a sign that you should keep doing it.
Right.
What about, so I actually was thinking kind of going against that. On one hand, Ollie, when you brought up procrastination as being maybe if resistance is the umbrella term, procrastination goes underneath it as being a component perhaps in the whole factor of resistance. Is that right?
Yeah. Resistance is a form, or sorry, procrastination is a form
okay.
of resistance.
Yeah. So, but when I hear what you said, Sammy, I think about for what I've learned about procrastination is sometimes it's good to reflect on what you're doing because maybe you're doing the wrong thing. If you're procrastinating so much, maybe your goals and the direction you're headed is just not right, because if you can't find the motivation and you don't have the desire or the I'm thinking of the habit equation, if you don't have the reward and the craving, then maybe you're doing it wrong. So it's just interesting because to hear you say that, because I think of
that's a hard one to I don't know, it's debatable because like it's hard to like understand within yourself if you're not doing something because that's the easier route almost, or if it's like you're not doing something.
And I think it's probably a fine line between making an excuse for yourself and not doing something. But for me, the procrastination was almost when I heard that maybe you're just doing the wrong thing and that's why you're procrastinating so much. I felt relief because
as you would though, that's the thing.
Yeah, but okay, I want to give the example that when I was in high school and I was doing all the sciences, I really didn't like chemistry and I would find myself procrastinating all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And something like that, now that I'm older and there's no shame in being like, yeah, I didn't like chemistry and it wasn't my passion, and I also was never going to work in a field where I needed to have like a heavy chemistry background. I needed to, like, I wish back then someone had said to me, hey, maybe you're pushing too hard in an area that actually just doesn't make you happy.
I think you'll have to do some like internal evaluation, and it can be tricky to figure out, is this really true resistance or am I just looking for a way out?
So
and I think one way to maybe figure that out is it an area where you're actually also getting pulled a little bit towards it? Like for this podcast, I might have some resistances, fears of judgment, fear of failing, all these things, but there is also another side of me that is getting pulled towards me, like another voice per se, that's saying like, no, this is a good thing to do. And then so whenever I'm resisting that and resisting doing this thing, I know that I actually do kind of want to do this. Whereas maybe for you with the chemistry thing, there's nothing even really pulling you toward it. It's just like, it's just garbage. It's just garbage.
Just garbage. But because it's not necessarily just because it's
Daddy or that.
just because it's difficult that you should do it. Like I think you still, like you're just saying, Ollie, like it's you still have an underlying interest in the thing, but it's like you're procrastinating in the way that you're like, I want to do that, but it's like it's hard and maybe I'll do it tomorrow or something like that.
Would you say it might be a good idea that if you're working towards something, so I'm thinking right now in my own life, we're training for a half marathon. I say we because I think Sammy is as well. And there are definitely days where I'm just like, oh, we won't.
Subtle shot fired.
I cannot confirm or deny that at this time.
So I was thinking of making a list of all the reasons why I want to do this half marathon for those times where I feel the resistance and I'm thinking, you know what, I won't do it this time. Maybe I'll wait till the fall. Maybe I won't go running today. I think if you can create that list, that right there rules out is this the wrong direction? Because if you're going to do something and then you're saying, make 5 reasons why you want to pursue this, or you want to have a chemistry degree. If you can think of several reasons, it probably means that you do have some desire there, and the long-term goal, you can continue to focus on that. But if you're like, I don't know, there's nothing coming up, then it's like, well, then maybe reevaluate, because that you will come to like ahead with procrastination constantly.
I think that is a key thing, and I was writing about that a little bit when I was preparing to do this podcast about what is the antidote towards resistance, and that is definitely one of them. And what I wrote, kind of a similar idea to that, is just like structure your values and really organize what do you value more. And then when you're in those situations where maybe you want to not run, maybe you want to watch TV, or you want to go eat a snack, it's like, do you value eating snacks more, or do you value like overcoming or like developing yourself mentally and physically through the run and achieving something like running a half marathon? So what do you value more? Do you value the pretzels and the Doritos, or do you
Yeah.
value that? And then that in combination with just more mindfulness, which I feel like we bring up a lot on a lot of podcasts, but like the ability to catch yourself when you are feeling like I want to go eat those pretzels, but you realize I'm only just doing that to distract myself from going to run, and it's clearly I'm trying to procrastinate right now because I don't want to go do the thing.
And it's like, and then contrary to what your body is telling you, like the happiness is going to come from the like overcoming or setting goals and achieving them, and the responsibility and and not from the pretzels or whatever. But it is kind of like I guess catching yourself when you're doing stuff like that, and you're like, okay, we gotta get back to the thing, because that's the hardest part, is actually doing the thing. Like you can decide what you want to do, but then like putting the things into action.
Yeah, I caught myself doing that yesterday actually with the snack thing, where I was like, I'd planned to read, and so I sat down and I was about to read, but then I'm like, no, I should go get a snack. But then as I was gonna go get a snack, I realized like I just ate 2 crispy chicken Chipotle wraps from Tim Hortons.
Hey,
and shout out to them, they're good. But I was like, I'm not even hungry. Like I was clear that I was just going to do that because I was trying to procrastinate on doing the reading or writing that I had planned to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'll always eat basically out of boredom.
Yeah.
You just like start walking around the kitchen and you're like, well,
same.
let's grab a couple of cookies.
Or you can't read until you have the snack and the pillows are right, and
right,
and you have the tea and you whatever, and you can always think of something that you still need before you can start whatever it is you're
that's like there's like a quote in the book that's like, it's like talking about writing, and it's like the hard part is not the writing, the hard part is the sitting down to write, like that initial thing. And I feel like that's basically procrastination, like kind of what you were saying, like I need to get all these things perfect before I actually start doing my thing, and like that's the big resistance for sure. Right.
I've heard that people, and I've been guilty of this, when you're studying or something, whatever, if it's personal writing, you'll be like, I'll start at 10 a.m. and then let's say it's 10:01, you're like, well, better start at 11.
Yeah, I'll do that a lot too, where you want to start on the half hour or the start right on the hour.
I did that this morning actually.
But you still were able to get a Canadian tuxedo on.
Yeah, you gotta dress for the job you want.
Yeah. But Kailey, you brought up that example of you like convincing yourself, maybe this isn't something that I want to do. And I in reading this book, there's an idea there that I really liked about how crafty and kind of cunning your resistances can be. Like it can be the rationalizations that you say to yourself can actually be very convincing and very deceptive, where you fully believe what you're thinking yourself, like, no, I really don't want to go running, it's honestly not that great, it's bad for my knees, and you know what, like it'd be better if I spent my time doing poetry or whatever it is. Like,
you're like, my ankle is recovering or whatever. Yeah. And then that goes to the point, like it's like where it's like an athlete knows that like he's never gonna feel amazing, like, and you most often have to like play with some sort of injury, right, or like you're sore or whatever. But I guess like the lesson in that is that it's not going to be the perfect scenario ever for doing what you want to do. Like if you're kind of waiting for like the perfect time to do something, like it's not going to happen.
I feel like that's a key component. I like that the acceptance that things won't be perfect already makes me feel relief. I don't even have anything that I'm doing particularly important today, but just that idea that, hey, the environment won't be won't be perfect, so just do it anyway. I don't know. I feel like other people could relate to that, especially if you have perfectionist tendencies.
You'll never be ready.
Learn that acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
It's like, well, just go and do it. And that's that. Actually, on the run the other day, I was doing a 10K and it was so muddy that I stopped the run and just started walking, and I felt just annoyed because it was like, oh, this isn't the run I planned. I planned to do just a run without all this mud that I end up having to walk through the woods off the path and try to, jump on logs and all that. And then I ended up saying, no, this is all part of it. This is helping in some way, and it's a different run than I wanted to do. It won't be a personal best 10K, but it'll still be 10K, and we'll just carry on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can only control your you control your output, but what you get back is not really out of in your control. Like I really like that when he brought that up in this book, The War of Art. How you're saying the labor is up to you, but the fruits of that labor is not in your control. So you just put in the labor,
Right.
you just day after day just keep putting in the work, and maybe you get the fruits, maybe you don't. Maybe you get not the fruit you wanted. You're a big apple fan and you get a banana. You still have a fruit,
Yeah.
but it's not really up to you. So you can say, I'm gonna go for a run. Turns out there's like trees all over the place, and you're just gonna have to keep putting in the work and jumping over logs.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of a time where you expected the apple but got the banana and ended up being more pleased that it was the banana and not the apple?
Yeah.
I like that, but I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
is there a real life example?
Like I might say, like, for applying for different jobs or something like
Yeah.
that, and working like your way up in like a career or something, because you think about like trying to achieve something, and I think it's about kind of letting yourself relax a little bit. If you're doing like this podcast or something, you're like, I need to be #1 podcast, and like less focus on that, like the final success, because you can't control that necessarily,
Mhm.
which is kind of the point. But what you can control is how much effort you're putting into it right now, kind of thing.
Yeah, that apple banana scenario, it's hard to remember a time where that's happened, but when you say that, I'm sure there have been times
I
where
think
like
so.
the expectation and the result is slightly different, but you end up looking back and be like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm glad that happened. That was better.
For me, when I think, well, I just thought of it now, but tearing my ACL and not being able to play soccer was so devastating and just the worst case scenario for me. Now, in hindsight, the banana was that I feel like I gained a lot of perspective around other people's situations and I'm a lot more empathetic of a person because I experienced that type of suffering.
Yeah,
And that was not the apple. The apple was that I would play soccer and, you know,
Right.
get
right.
So
And
you got to find the banana in every situation.
yeah, because in
Okay.
that situation, you found the banana just because you wanted a banana so bad, because you saw like. You saw you weren't going to get that apple, so you mentally had to be like, you know what, I'm gonna look for the positive, and I'm gonna find that banana. It's got to be there somewhere.
A little
Yeah.
kind of flexible with which fruit you're gonna.
Yeah, you're not super
There's
picky.
benefits to all the fruit. Kiwi with skin on it, it'll get you.
Yeah, kiwi with skin on it is a
It's a
risky
furry-
business. Eat that
furry
in
little
public
guy.
and you'll get roasted, guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Happened
there's
to me.
polarizing views on the
Yeah.
kiwi skin.
Drop
Yeah,
us
it's
a
very
kiwi
touchy
emoji
subject.
if you like kiwi.
Let us know if you like kiwi skin on or off.
Yeah. Fire emojis and kiwi emojis. That's what I want to see for this one. The thing with the rationalization is that sometimes it actually is partly true. Like, I'll think of a very simple example where you might have some resistance, and that is like working out. You had mentioned the running, similar thing, but you might think of things like, oh, you know what, it's kind of late, like maybe I shouldn't, or you know what, I could just work out tomorrow, or like I worked out yesterday, so actually it might be better if I just give myself a rest, or you know what, maybe it's better if I just go to bed now instead of working out because I'm a little bit sleep deprived. Those are all things that you might think, and some of them might actually be partly true. Like maybe it is actually would be a decent idea to go to bed and not work out. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so this is where you that value structure comes back, where you think about what is actually more important to me. Is it more important to me to get a good night's sleep, or is it more important to me to put in work towards my goal of running a half marathon or whatever your goal is?
Yeah.
And so when you have that structure, it really helps. And on that note, so there's the two things, like the mindfulness and the value structure, and I think the habit thing is also, if you're able to get that on your side, like you figure out what are your habits and how can I make a habit that serves my values, that could be pretty powerful as well.
I find the comfort in just hearing you say that you can easily come up with excuses, and the comfort that it is universal, and this isn't something that makes you, it's not like, oh, you're weaker or you're not capable or you're making excuses. It's something that even the best athletes or the smartest people, whoever has experienced that. Like it's a very human experience.
And I think it's a skill in itself to basically overcome that. Like that resistance that you feel and then you can push it aside and be like, no, I'm actually going to work out right now.
Exactly. And I feel like it's a comfort, but an inspiration too, to say, yeah, even the best of the best overcame this. And they started in a place where they didn't want to get out of bed at 5 a.m. to train for whatever it was. And you can do that too. That it is that's the difference between.
Yeah, everybody definitely has resistance. And I think the difference between some people, like you might look at them and be like, oh no, I'm sure they're just like, it's easy. They don't seem to have a lot of resistance. And maybe they just, it could be a couple of things. Maybe naturally they are pretty good at overcoming their own resistances. But also maybe the force that is pulling them, like I was saying at the beginning, it seems like there's two forces. One is pulling you towards going to do the thing, and then there's the resistance that's like keeping you down. Maybe the force that is pulling them to do it is very powerful. And then, like you were saying, Sammy, it's kind of like a skill you can develop to become good at doing things you're not totally wanting to do. Yeah. Like I don't totally want to do this, but I'm gonna be like develop myself so I become good at doing things I don't want to do.
Being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think time after time, if you put yourself in those scenarios where you're doing things you don't totally want to do, I don't know if the resistance goes down or your strength goes up, but one or the other, it doesn't really matter, but you just get better at doing those things.
And I think I think that's a good point to understand, because I don't think it's like a switch where you just like learn it. Like maybe your goal is to wake up at 5 a.m. and work out, but then as you set that goal, you start waking up at 6 and then you go, you end up working out at 7, and then like, but eventually you slowly get better at like fighting this kind of resistance until you can be like right at 5 a.m. you're working out, if that's what you want.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame, because he mentions this a lot in the book about how there's a lot of unlived potential and unlived lives just because of the resistance. It's not necessarily like there's always, obviously certain people have certain situations, but it's not always the case that there's external things that are holding you back. A lot of the time it's the internal way that you're talking to yourself and your understanding and your like battle with resistance that ends up not allowing you to reach certain potentials.
Yeah, it's like that story with like the woman who gets a cancer diagnosis, like 6 months to live or whatever, a year to live or something, and then she starts doing all these things that she always wanted to do, and then the cancer ends up going into remission, and then she has more time to live, but it's like, oh, that now my life is more like what I wanted it to be. And it's like, is that what it takes to make your life better? Yeah. Which is like such an interesting kind of thought.
I think urgency definitely plays a role in getting things done or doing things. But yeah, should it? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard
because it's an interesting thought to think that like there's things that all of us kind of know that we really want to do, but we're like not doing in a way. Yeah. Because you just think that you have extra time, or I don't know what you're thinking. But
and I think it's a dangerous path to continually turn that down. Like, let's say you do have that voice or that side of you that's pushing you to go do your meaningful goal or whatever you're dreaming, and just time after time you keep shutting it down. The resistance keeps winning that war. I think that can end up maybe just like shutting that voice up entirely. It just completely quiets the voice that is telling you to go do that thing. And then it takes something big, like maybe like that example you had where that lady got cancer, to shake up the whole system, because you're just so accustomed to shutting down that voice and like no and rationalizing as to why you shouldn't go do your thing. And then when your life gets completely shaken up and you're like, oh my God, I have cancer, what should I do? Like, I don't have a lot of time. That's when you realize that voice maybe pops back out and the resistance goes down. You're like, it's not worth it for me to continue living like this. So need to shake things up.
What about if you don't experience the resistance because you don't know what you should do? Like, what if you currently don't have any goals, or you don't know what direction to go in as to what you're passionate about? What's the recommendation there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough situation.
That's an interesting one.
It's like, what I think, and you guys say what you think too, but like, I mean, that maybe is just try a bunch of different things and explore your options. And in exploring those options, watch for the resistance, because you might be like, no, I don't want to try that thing because I don't know, I won't be good at it. Maybe this, maybe that. All these rationalizations and the typical type of resistances, but just try these things, and then as you kind of expand your options, I think one of them, or maybe a couple of them, whatever it is, are going to be likely to grab you. It's almost a numbers game. The more things you try, the more likely one of those things is going to grab you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's like, I find the interesting concept of like a shadow career, which also the author is like, I've heard him talk about, where it's like somebody will be really interested in, like, let's say they want to be a musician or something like that, but they always kind of feel this resistance and don't really like acknowledge that. So they end up working in something like similar, but not like they become like an entertainment lawyer or something like that, where in reality they just want to be a musician, but they're almost not even addressing that within themselves or putting in the effort to even try.
It's like they're like halfway winning the war against resistance, but not all the way.
Yeah, but it's still like a step that's just a little too scary because they don't want to put themselves out there completely, but they want to be around it kind of.
Right.
And it's like yeah, it's almost thing, but it's still unfulfilling like goal.
Yeah. I really like the idea that the self-doubt and fear is actually a little bit like a compass, and it's a sign that you are in the right direction. I know you brought that up at the beginning, Sammy, but like that I feel like is good to know, and it gives you a different perspective when you notice yourself doubting yourself, or you notice the fears popping up, because instead of being like, oh, I should run, this is not a good spot for me to be in, you think, okay, this is a sign I'm in the right spot, and then that helps to push through it.
Like if it brings up a lot of emotion in you, it probably means a lot to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a sign that you're in a place that is going to be stretching your boundaries and stretching your development. Because if you're in a place where you're just no fear, no self-doubt, you're totally comfortable, that's not really a place that's going to be expanding you, right? Like
There's
that's going to be
growth there.
Yeah.
No.
And I think a lot of like kind of resistance comes from a place of like judgment of others and like embarrassment almost. I mean, it depends on the practice, but it's like
that's well,
like
just
criticizing others is a form of your own resistance, you mean?
Or like fearing like the judgment of others.
Right.
that's why you don't do something.
Yeah, that's why you don't do something, because you're afraid of what they're gonna say. But kind of like if you can find the comfort of like like even though it's more painful, it's probably better to be in the arena, as they say, than like watching on the sidelines.
I love that saying so much, that like you'd rather just be in the game than in the parking lot or on the sidelines.
Yeah.
But being in the game, you're gonna take some hits.
Yeah, exactly.
But all considered, I'd rather be in the game taking some hits than being in the stands.
Okay,
Yeah.
can I do a follow-up quote that I really like about an arena?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a Brene Brown quote.
Uh-oh.
And it's
Arch nemesis.
Stop. She's great. And it said that when you're in the arena, the people in the cheap seats, like up high watching you, should have like you should never look up at them, because you'll lose your place in the arena, but you'll also like they're not in the arena with you, so they have like no right to say anything about your journey and what you're doing in there. And so just focus on you. I'm botching the quote, but it is a good
They will
quote.
say things, but kind of just understanding that you're the person who's putting it out there.
Yeah. She follows that up with take a little piece of paper and write on it the few, and it should not be very many people, but the few people in your life that you know that they have your best interest in mind, and that they truly care about you and support you no matter what. And those are the people, your piece of paper people that you can look to, who will be there like with you in the arena, supporting you. And everyone else, it doesn't matter. And those are the people that will hold you accountable, but support you and know what, or be there to kind of guide you.
I like that. And I think that is a true thing that happens when you step foot and start to go do the thing that is pulling you forward, the thing that is meaningful and important to you is that and here's another saying for you, like the cream rises to the top.
Oh my gosh.
There you go, two in one podcast. But what I mean by that there is that, like, kind of like you were saying, the people that really do support you, they'll rise to the top, and you'll end up, maybe you're gonna see your truest self, so that rises to the top. The thing that you maybe been repressing, you finally are like, I'm gonna put it out there, and I'm gonna do this thing that I really want to do, and then your support rises to the top, and so everything rises up, and maybe there is some silt at the bottom, but you didn't want the silt, you wanted the cream at the top, right? So
Beautiful.
You want those piece of paper people.
Yeah. But one thing on that critic thing, Kailey, is like, you might be looking up at these people, and I was reading a line in the book that was saying that it's not necessarily that what the critics are saying is true, or I'm botching a little bit, but the idea is that it's not just the criticism from the critics, it's that you partially that hurt. It's not just their criticism that hurts, it's that you partially believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
So
right.
it really ends up coming down to your own the way you're looking at yourself, because the critics can say a wide number of things.
Yeah.
But the ones that really hurt you are the ones that you already partially believe. So you're like, oh, that kind of is true. Or it's the ones that you're already battling with yourself. You're already telling yourself it. And then to hear somebody else say it, you're like, ooh, maybe it is true, this resistance that I'm already feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's a hard one, because I feel like it's so easy to feel so much doubt about yourself when you're doing things or putting things out on the internet or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, even just the feeling that you're like, maybe I shouldn't be the one who does this. Maybe I should be in the stands. And then you get a bad feedback, and it's like, get back. You shouldn't do this. Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, you're right. I'm going to go back into my home.
Back in your cave, or just crawl back. Yeah, no, it is tough. And he was mentioning, unfortunately, sometimes the more you are defeating your own internal resistances, the more external resistances you're going to start to get. Because as people see you starting to beat your own internal resistances, there could be a potential for, I haven't seen this much, I'm just saying this is what I've heard, and sometimes you do see it like online or whatever, but that as you start to beat your own internal resistances, people maybe are more likely to criticize, because they in some sense know they have their own internal resistances, and the fact that you're beating your own, it doesn't necessarily make them feel great, because they're like, ooh, I have internal resistances, that person's overcoming theirs, that doesn't make me feel that nice, so I'm gonna maybe try to bring them back down.
Yeah, the tendency is to bring them back down.
Yeah,
when you see somebody rising, unfortunately.
It's tough.
And I usually, there's like a no notes policy for this podcast. Yeah. But I don't know if you guys noticed, I got this one sheet of paper beside me.
I noticed it now.
Because I did write down some of the things that what are my resistances towards doing this podcast, and I thought it might be interesting to read them out. And I knew I probably wouldn't be able to remember all of them, so that's why I have a piece of paper.
Cool.
But let me know, like, if you guys relate to some of them, if you feel like you also have these same resistances, or maybe you're surprised by some of the ones that I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, a few of the resistances that I find I have for the podcast, and I don't want to say this out of like, oh, I'm trying to get sympathy, like, oh, I'm feeling so bad or anything. I find it interesting to talk about these things, and
yeah, for sure, because it is a real thing, like, yeah.
But anyway, so I like a fear. Generally, it's all just fears. So, a fear of judgment, a fear of failure, a fear of quitting, a fear of producing low quality content, a fear of the work that is required, a fear of becoming egotistical or preachy, a fear of being heard or seen, a fear of saying the wrong thing, a fear of not seeing the results, a fear of getting burnt out, a fear of realizing that I'm incapable, a fear of gaining a following, and a fear of the expectations that I'm setting for myself and others. So Those are all the ones that I was thinking of.
That's an extensive list.
Yeah, that's interesting. The fear of gaining a following is an interesting one.
Yeah, that one, just because I think that one ties into the last one that I was saying too, of the expectations I'm setting up for myself and others.
Right.
Is that maybe as you're gaining a following, you start to, there's just maybe more expectations that you put on yourself, and you might think like, oh, now I've got these people and they're expecting all these things, and that is a little bit of a fear itself. But the thing is, and I don't want this to be like, oh, like I have all these things, this is no good. The thing is, regardless of all that, I still would rather go do it. Right. Even though you have all those fears towards doing the podcast, it's like there's a sense that I should still be doing this podcast, and a desire to do it that trumps all of it.
I also think when you don't write that list, those things still exist and still affect you. So it's not like writing that list makes them come true, or that you feel them more greatly. It's those fears were there, and they were always, maybe you either suppress them or you put them out in the open, you acknowledge them and say, these are realistic things that might come up and feelings I might feel. However, I am going to be in control of that and know that I am the one leading this, and I make the choices and I make the calls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's and you might be better able to catch yourself when you do have it, like, because I remember we were talking about this, about the emotions, that having a label for them can actually help to relieve them, and maybe having a label for this specific fear that you're feeling could help also to overcome it, where you're feeling it and you're like, what is that? And specifically, okay, that's a fear of judgment. Like, you know what it is exactly.
Yeah, I think that making that list is a really good idea, because otherwise you could just like feel the emotion and not pinpoint it, and kind of just like
it would linger longer.
It would linger, and you would potentially just not do what you want to do.
I feel like it's if you go into a room that you're not familiar with and it's pitch black in there, and you're just like kind of feeling that like that could be a dresser. Oh, is that a rug on the floor? And what you've done now is turn on the lights. You're like, here's what it is.
Oh yeah,
right.
And you're like, this is the room that I have.
Yeah,
this is the reality.
These are the components I'm working with, and there we go.
Yeah, or you're getting like attacked by like it's at night and there's like bats swarming around. They're just like, you keep getting like nipped or whatever, but you don't realize what it is.
You turn it on and it's
like,
just like pieces of paper hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah,
like, those aren't bats at all.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah,
really.
But the quality thing, I think there was a point you made about consistency of quality or something similar to that.
Yeah,
which like I've definitely felt with like doing music stuff, and it's like it's almost like once you do something that was somewhat well received, and then you go to do the second thing, like a second album or third album or something, it's almost like if it can't be better than the first thing I did, then it's like I almost don't want to do anything, which I think is not the best mentality to have. No. And kind of like understanding that it's like, okay, it's like it doesn't matter, you can kind of go in like a wave of good and bad or whatever. It's almost better just to try and make things and learn lessons than it is to just like get scared, not do anything. That makes sense. And
put all of the eggs in one basket, as that quality of the work is the only outcome that you're looking at.
Right.
That the only thing you want is better, but you could look at it as the process, or better on a smaller scale. I learned this new guitar skill, or I got to work with this producer, or we tried something new.
That was something I also like too, like a point about not putting your self-worth in like the work that you're doing, which is almost like a like natural kind of tendency, especially if you're doing creative stuff like drawing or painting or being a musician. It's like you become like what you're making in a way, which I think you don't necessarily have to, and it's almost unhealthy to do that. If you treat it more like it's like that's the benefit of treating it more like it's a job or something, and there's a little bit of like distance.
I feel like that's still something that will be a lifelong journey for me, that what I produce and what I do in life does not affect my self-worth.
Because you aren't what you're doing all the time, like like your self-worth is somewhat detached from the product that you made. Like you're more, there's more to you than the thing that you produced. so you don't completely beat yourself up if the thing that you produced isn't, you're not feeling good about it, or it gets criticized. And yeah, I really like that thing, especially with like artistic things, and that you kind of, I feel like for creative things, you often assume that it's just, oh, like some people are just like creatively inspired, they're just very inspired to like create this content, but it really is more like just like a grind, like anything else. Like you might have some inspiration, but you don't know when the inspiration is going to come, so you just need to keep sitting down, and occasionally you'll get blessed with some inspiration, and you'll get blessed with some creativity and motivation. God bless.
Namaste. I like that quote. I will never remember who the names of the people are, if you remember, but it's like some writer or something, and it's like do you wait for inspiration? And he said, he's like, yeah, I do, but thankfully inspiration strikes like every morning at 9 a.m. sharp.
Oh yeah.
So it's like he's basically worked it into his system to work at writing, like he's grinding it out,
Right.
Like even though it's a creative pursuit, it's still something that you can work at, like it's like a job.
Yeah, and he was talking about the job thing, how it's good to treat it like a job. And one thing that kind of surprised me is he said it actually is somewhat good to be focusing on the money aspect, and like treat your creative project like it is a corporation, and you are trying to get the money. And because that brings in a bit of the like nose to the grindstone, there's another one.
Lunch pail mentality.
The lunch pail mentality of just like, I show up and like you would your job, you wake up and you don't really feel like going to work, you're tired, but you just show up, and you show up at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever you have to do, and you stay there till the time that you have to clock out, and you treat your creative project like that, because there's a reason that your job treats it like that, is because you, to get like the maximum results and to be a successful business, you kind of need your employees putting in consistent shifts. And same kind of applies for any creative project, really. And if you want it to turn out somewhat successfully, you need to be putting in the consistent shifts, and not just when you feel overly inspired.
Yeah. I don't feel like I'm the most creative person right now.
You just gotta put in the grind.
I know, but I don't actually have any projects on the go or anything that I'm well, I guess maybe my house.
You got some good analogies that you come up with.
Yeah, you had that good yeah, that was a good one. And then I said that bat one, which reflecting I was thinking about that after, like, oh, not the best, but shoot or shoot.
No, I was thinking I would like some more creative outlet right now. So it's something I would like to put in the work for. Personally, I don't feel like right now I really do anything creative.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know.
Do you have interests? Creative interests?
Matt says they're middle-aged people interests.
Ooh, a little bit of resistance, and you partly believe that?
Yeah.
You think
so?
Are
you waiting until the middle age strikes and then you start? You could get a head start, and then.
Well, I like reading nonfiction. I like walking. I like baking. I like crocheting. I like
walking's pretty creative.
You're a big photographer, actually. I see you taking pictures, and like you can tell there's some deeply rooted passion there.
I love photography.
You got an eye for photography.
I love photography.
Yeah, well, there you go. Do you find there's a little bit of resistance holding you back from being the true photographer you could be?
Yeah, because I use a smartphone, and I have no photography training, except Sammy gave me a lesson one day on a scrap piece of paper. And I feel like being a photographer in this day and age is, people say everyone can be a photographer because cameras are made so good, but
I don't think it's the camera that makes a good photographer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I think so. Like, you just have a good eye, and that might have come from, like, basically you didn't even realize it, but you've been practicing your whole life, like just looking through lenses. And
I actually
phones and
because
stuff.
because the selfie whatever, and I like taking pictures of people. I also like taking pictures of myself. I feel like I downplayed the photography thing because I thought it was like, oh yeah, like, you know, you just take pictures, whatever. Everyone takes a million pictures a day. But now I've come to be more confident in that. I feel I can say, no, I genuinely really enjoy taking pictures. When I take a nice picture of someone, I feel very happy inside, which maybe isn't, you know, maybe that's more of a universal feeling. But I get very excited about the idea of being able to take a photo of someone that's great lighting and really shines their best attributes.
Yeah.
Some of those pictures you have of animals, especially like of Marty like leaping through the snow, like those are really good. I don't know if it might partly because that's like our dog, but they are also like the way like the sun setting and Marty's like jumping over the setting sun or whatever, like they're pretty nice.
Anyone interested, follow Marty.the
Yeah.
dog.
But that's what's kind of
I forget the name.
That's what's kind of interesting about the world and people who feel resistance and don't feel resistance and try and go for goals, because I feel like there's so many people like on Instagram, let's say, who would have a photography account, call themselves photographers, and in my opinion take much worse photos than you, and then you're over here like with these amazing
There's
photos,
room for all of
and
us
you're
at
like
the top.
and you're like, I'm not good at it. I don't know. Or just doubting yourself.
And I think that's also, for me, the all or nothing idea that, okay, just because I admit that I like photography and maybe want to explore that more does not then mean that I'm quitting my job and becoming a photographer and I must be the best in the world. But I put those two together. I say, as soon as I say I like photography, I must have a business. I must be, you know, very good. I must go to school. And it's, okay, that doesn't have to be
a greasy, sneaky form of resistance. And I feel like that's a very common one where people don't want to start unless they're already at the top. Like, I don't want to take pictures unless as soon as I start, I'm like a professional photographer. Or I've thought about that with the podcast where like, no, I don't even want to start doing the podcast because like it's kind of stupid. Like you see other people who have 100,000 millions of downloads, so and you're like,
don't even want to.
I'm nothing. Like, why am I even doing it? This is like, but you can't have that mentality, and I think that is just another resistance. And
so how do you counteract that? What do you do?
Start something, it's like, what's the point of this thing though?
I think you have to he talks about this in the book, stop thinking so hierarchical, if I'm saying that right, and think more territorial. So like if you're thinking like a hierarchy, you're looking at yourself and you're comparing yourself to where are other people, and you might say, oh, if I do photography, I'm at the bottom of the list. But it's more of like a territory thing, and everybody's in their own zone. So treat yourself as if you're in your own zone and you're not necessarily up against other people. There's going to be people that take pictures of things that you don't want to take pictures of. You have your own style and your own little niche that you want to do, and you just stick to that. Does that, like, do you think that would kind of help? If you like, it's almost like the age-old advice of just compare yourself to who you were yesterday and then not to other people.
Totally. It is good. And it's interesting because I know I've said it on the podcast prior about staying in your own lane and how you just focus on your own thing. And for many things in my life, I feel like I'm very good at that. But there are certain things, like you said, when you're starting at the bottom, that you're extra insecure about the idea that you're putting yourself in this spot that you're not excel to the top right away or maybe ever, but that's okay, and that's not the point of it, right? Like I just said to you guys, I take the photo and I truly feel very happy when I take a good photo of something, and I get a lot of joy out of getting a shot that I'm proud of, and that's so subjective because no one else has even seen it yet, and I'm just there like, got it, and I go home going like, sick, I got that photo, I really want it. And no one else was there. No one else has even seen it. No one else has their judgment. And therefore I then am going home and suddenly having all these thoughts like, well, I'm actually not very good at photography and I don't like, I shouldn't be saying that, but it's like what I actually enjoy about it involves no one else.
Yeah. And then isn't that kind of a deep shame? Like I was saying kind of at the beginning, a lot of people's potentials and the true things that they enjoy in life, they don't even end up, exploring the potential, and they don't end up doing the things that they really do enjoy because of resistance internally like that, where you're just saying, oh, I'm
Yeah.
not good enough. Oh, this is like crazy. I don't want to do it unless I can quit my job and like all that stuff.
Yeah. And it's hard to know, like maybe that kind of doubt that you start to feel like, well, it sounds like it's coming from when you think about showing it to other people, which is basically maybe the fear of being in that arena and taking the blows, getting out of like the kind of nosebleeds or whatever we were talking about earlier, where it's like that's a really scary thing but potentially very rewarding.
I think it is extremely rewarding, and I feel like there's nothing more like real than like the, I don't know, like the actual judgments, because you might get some judgments where you get some haters that are like oh, those pictures are garbage, like you get some comments like that. But if I feel like there is something just like nice about that, where you, if there are truly people that are gonna comment, you still don't hide from it. Like maybe there are some people that are gonna hate your pictures or hate this podcast or whatever, but you still just go do it, and it's like, well, I just find something actually enjoyable in some ways about that you know that there might be some judgments. There's all, like a fear of judgment, but there's some like some satisfaction in it too.
Because you turned on the lights in your dark room too, you know that the judgment is potentially an object that's there.
Yeah.
To go back to your analogy. And then you're like, so then once it does come, you're kind of aware. You're like, okay, I knew that was there.
And Kailey, that thing you said about, oh, everybody could be a photographer, I feel like that's just another resistance too. Because people might say that, be like, why would you do a podcast? Like everyone's doing a podcast these days. Like it's easy. Like everyone's taking pictures. It's just another reason for you to not do it. But
it also just cancels itself out, because everyone could be a photographer. Okay, is that just a fact? Like it's not. It has nothing to do with me. What is, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And same with the podcast. Yeah, everyone could do it, but that's okay. Everyone could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And usually the line between people doing it and not doing it is just battling their own resistances.
Yeah.
Like the person who is a photographer.
You can be like, everyone could do a podcast, or everyone can do a podcast.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It really all depends.
Yeah. Everyone can run a half marathon, I suppose, but you're actually putting in the work and you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Which is a fulfilling thing for yourself.
Yeah, that's what sucks about the whole advice is it's like, it's harsh, but it's like you know it's true, and the advice, I mean, is just you just have to do the work. And I think that's how he finishes the book. On like the last page, he's like, well, with the entire book, with all that being said, it just comes down to you just doing it.
Right.
And like that's what it is. It's just a daily thing, a war every single day. War with yourself. I really like that idea.
It's a battle.
It's like he said that about, like, he's like the creative producer, the person creating a project has a very similar mindset to a warrior, where it just, you show up ready for battle every single day, and you fight every day, and you're not fighting like external enemies like a warrior might, but you're fighting the internal enemies.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
like that,
for sure.
It definitely feels like that sometimes.
And hopefully, you know, maybe by us sharing some of the resistance we felt in our life, whoever might listen to the podcast can be inspired that whatever it is, whether it's super small, like going out with your phone and taking some photos, or something a little bit bigger, whether it's career wise or just a bigger path you're taking in life, that, you know, there will be resistances, but that's real, and that's part of it. That's just part of the joy in the journey.
And Sammy, you, I feel like, are a bit of an expert when it comes to creative projects, just being in a band for a while. Like, have you seen your ability to maybe recognize and even adapt to the resistance evolve over time? Like, for people who don't know, like, you've been in a band for how long? Like quite a long time. So that's like an artistic endeavor. I haven't really been dabbling into creative projects until maybe this podcast.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that you can, like, the battle that we were kind of referring to, I definitely think that's something that gets easier with practice. And kind of just like, and it's something that you almost have to work on. It's like a mental training.
It's also like a resume, like it's for the resume too, that you have continued to go against the resistance and beat that inner resistance, and you can put that on your resume. Like, look at all the times that I've done that and I've accomplished what I wanted.
Yeah, maybe like yeah. And by resume, do you mean like just
metaphorical resume?
Right. Yeah. Like that's I feel like a lot of what builds self-confidence and self-respect is that you had those resistances, but time and time again you kept beating them, and that makes you feel good. And I feel like the opposite happens when you keep losing to the resistances. You lose self-respect, and you feel a little bit guilty or ashamed because you're like, man, the resistance beats me every time.
Yeah, just putting in the practice. Like if you think about like, because I recently had to do a couple essays for school, and like you think back about to like the first, when you were learning how to write an essay, it's like so difficult, and then it's like hard to sit down and do it, because I think the essay is kind of like a creative process too. And then as you do like tons of them, like let's say you go to university or something, I feel like you can just practice so much that in your head you're kind of just like, it's essay time, like we're writing it. Yeah, if that makes sense. You get used to it. And same with like me playing music or writing music or something like that. I'm just like, it's not necessarily going to be an easy thing, and it's not always fun or enjoyable, but you're just like, hey, I've done this before, I'm going to do it again. It's time to work.
And I think there's something really beneficial to like stepping into the unknown. And let's say let's say you're not familiar with or you haven't done a lot of essays, but you put yourself there and you realize, okay, what does it take for me to get good at essays? And it just is the consistency of trying to do it and sitting down to write every day. And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of benefit in doing something you're not totally good at and just working your way up. And I really see that with the like the Muay Thai kickboxing that I started doing a couple years ago, where you start and like you're garbage, like you don't really know how to punch or kick, or like you don't know how to do anything, but you see, okay, the only way that I get better is I just keep showing up. Like that's all it is, really. And once you recognize that, you can apply that to a lot of other areas of your life where like, wait, it doesn't even make sense for me to be getting better. I'm not doing it enough. So it, like, how good I'm getting at kickboxing is directly tied to how many times I show up.
Yeah.
And it's like that for everything.
And then you embrace the vulnerability that you're not going to be the best.
Yeah. I like the comfort of like putting it in such a simple term like that. Like it's just like more hours like doing the thing equals better results. Right. And then and I always forget who says the quotes, but there was like something similar to that where it's like 80% of the work is showing up. Yeah. And like if you can just consistently show up, like you will improve for sure.
Yeah.
Showing up is massive.
This is inspiring me because I want to be doing some more cycling in the next 6 weeks before the half marathon, and the simplicity of that, what you just said, Sammy, where the showing up, and what you said, Ollie, as well, that all I need to do is get out of bed earlier, get on my bike, and we're off. You know, that's the hard part, and then we're on the bike and we're going, and that we're already working.
Yeah, that's where the most resistance is. But when you take that first step,
exactly.
You're halfway
that's like
done.
Like they say, if you're having trouble going to the gym, just make your goal to put the gym clothes on. And it's like that's almost the battle that you've just won right there.
No
and
kidding.
then you're like, once your gym clothes are on, you're like, okay, I'll do something.
That's actually very smart. Sometimes I do that if I am going to work out in the living room, and I will just roll the yoga mat out and put the weights out, and then it's like those are out, and then it's like that was it, and then it seems like no issue. Whereas if I didn't do that and then sit in the kitchen, go like, maybe I'll work out, but it's like, just go and do that, and now it's sitting there waiting for you. So what else?
Exactly. It's not the
right.
I would say that works 100% of the time for me.
Yeah.
It's
not the writing, it's the sitting down to write.
Yeah, like that's why that writer you said there, just he sits down at 9 a.m. and the inspiration starts to come.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, we've been going for a little over an hour now, so we can wrap it up. But any final thoughts? I mean, I feel like those are some good messages, and try to find the banana, like turn that apple into a banana, and just sit down and do the work. Simple as that, really.
Don't forget your piece of paper, people, and just be flexible with your fruit choices.
Yeah, that's the main message that we
5
want
to 10 a
to
day.
send to people here is be flexible with your fruit choices. That's that's the main thing that hopefully
Try
people
pomegranate,
get
get
out of
some
this
mango.
podcast. And I just thought of it now.
You hate fruit.
Yeah, I hate fruit. I gotta admit, I was talking about fruit all the
Just
time.
remembered.
I actually don't like. No, that's not true. But I was thinking about that Five Guys thing last time we were on the podcast.
Oh,
There's a cliffhanger. We were talking about
jeez.
that Five Guys story. Maybe we'll leave that for the next one.
If you want to hear it, you'll wait till next episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Coming up, Five Guys.
So Five Guys will be there next time. So see you there. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.